try. So, guys, do me a favor. Like, share, subscribe. It's Burn It Down with Kim Brown at BIDWKB around the internet, Instagram, Twitch. What's up? Twitter at Burn It Down KB on Twitter. We appreciate you guys watching. Shout out to us folks watching on Facebook as well. So, as you guys know, one of the topics I discuss quite frequently here has to do with the issue of gender-based violence, right? And femicide. That's not usually a term that I use. And I'm wondering if the reason that I don't use the term femicide is because, again, as someone that was trained as a journalist, that's not really a term that you hear in the media, though it probably should be more, right? Femicide is when women and girls are killed simply for being female. And such was the case that happened in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Okay. In July of 2022, July 26th to be specific, 16-year-old Susana Morales went missing. Susana was leaving a friend's apartment complex and going home, and her family never heard from her again. There was no activity on her cell phone. She didn't post on social media. She had basically disappeared. About 6 months later, in February of 2023, tragically, Susanna's remains were discovered in Gwinnett County, I believe, also. Interestingly enough, when the police were searching the area where they found Susanna's remains, they found a gun. Now, Susanna had not been shot, but what was interesting about this gun is that the gun was actually the service weapon of a Doraville, Georgia police officer who was at the time 21 years old. His name was Miles Bryant. About a week after Susanna's remains were discovered, Officer Bryant was arrested and charged in connection with her killing. And this week, a former Officer Bryant has been convicted of the murder of Susana Morales. If you could throw up the AJC article for me, Will. This trial lasted several weeks. It revealed a lot of information, specifically about Miles Bryant, the man who has now been convicted of killing this woman. And I'm looking at this young man. I want you guys to look at this kid. Okay. 23 years old. That's why I call him a kid. I know a lot of people, oh, he's a grown ass man. I guess. Okay. But he's a kid. And I need to know how the fuck a 23-year-old young man, murders a teen girl who was a stranger to him. And trust me, no, it would not have been better at all if they had been acquaintances or if they had been in a relationship. No, 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 no. That's what makes it scarier to me, is that he did not know her and she did not know him. Throughout the course of the investigation, police were not able to determine. They were clearly able to determine that there was no prior relationship between the accused and the victim. And what they speculate happened is that Miles Bryant saw Susanna at the apartment complex pool, and they believe that he kidnapped her. They believe that he either assaulted her sexually or attempted to assault her, and that he eventually murdered her. But he killed her, they suspect, all in the same night. They believe that she died the same night that she went missing. And I need to know, how in the fuck do we get there to where a 23-year-old, 23, okay, I can't even I'm kind of stuck at 23. We can let me get unstuck from his age at 23 and move on to the fact that he was a police officer, by the way, who had previous complaints about creepy, stalkerish, harassing behavior while and since he was on the police force. By the way, I also think he was a former Army member. Military and police, former military and police. Wow, what a hell of a combination. Here he is, a convicted murderer of a teen girl by the age of 23. What in the entire fuck was going on in this young man's mind? Well, unfortunately, I do not have access to my doc. Can you tell me what's the first video that I have up? I think the first video I have is what happened to Susana Morales, if I have that right, Will. Because I think it's these women and girls who end up dead either at the hands of their partners, at the hands of their family members, or in this case, at the hands of a total fucking stranger. Like, these women's names and faces, they should not be forgotten. They should not go unacknowledged. So I think this was from the TikTok account of an Atlanta reporter. Will, I might ask you to play the video, and after we play the video, can you come back and give the credit? Because I can't, my phone died, so I don't have that on my in front of me. But this short video kind of gives us an idea of what happened to Susana Morales. And I think I pretty much summed it up, but here we go. Let's check it out.
18-year-old Susana Morales texted her mom around at 9:40 p.m. to let her know that she was going to be heading home soon. So she left her friend's house around 10 p.m. and she started her walk home. But time went by and Susana never made it home. On February 6th of 2023, a call came into the police from someone in a wooded area, and they believed that they had come across naked human remains. The following day, police announced that the human remains that were found were in fact Susana's remains. Police decided to do a grid search of the area to look for potential clues. They came across a gun near where the body had been found. The body didn't appear to have been shot though, but obviously that was an odd find. Law enforcement was able to use their system and run the serial number of the gun that they had found. And that serial number traced back to 22-year-old Miles Bryant, a former Army member who was a police officer for the city of Doraville.
And let me tell you something. This kid, this Miles Bryant, and again, I hate that I even did that, infantilize him. Oh, this kid. I mean, yes, I don't know. I'm a little betwixt and between about that, because at 23 he is a fucking kid. But you know what? Fuck this kid. You know what I'm saying? Fuck his ass for him being a fucking savage, disgusting, horrendous monster of a person. Fuck this kid. Even if I am referring to him as a kid, like Michael Jordan say, fuck them kids. Fuck this kid. Fuck his fucking ass. So the gun, as mentioned there by the reporter, that was Miles Bryant's service weapon that this fucking genius reported being stolen on the same night that Susana went missing. What a coincidence. Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. So, Miles Bryant, as I mentioned, has now been convicted of, I believe, 4 felonies, including malice murder, also including kidnapping, also including making a false report in connection with the gun. He was acquitted though on one count of attempted rape, and which I can understand why the jury, it was a jury trial, by the way. I can understand why the jury maybe could not follow through on a guilty verdict for that, specifically because how can you prove it? Her remains were so decomposed after 6 months, there's no way to prove it. But you better fucking believe that was the entire reason for him taking her. That was it. This person was so motivated and so deeply unhinged and unwilling or unable, or to or was felt some compulsion, that he just could not leave this 16-year-old girl alone, that he saw her walking, and whether or not he forced or coerced her in some way into the vehicle, he knew what he intended to do to her, and that was harm in some way. But here's the thing about this guy, Miles Bryant. First of all, again, former Doraville, Georgia police, Vesper X, give us tell the folks in the chat what's up with Doraville. Vespers are one of our ATLians out here. I don't know much about Gwinnett County or Doraville in particular, but I obviously know that their psychological screenings must not be all that stringent. because obviously this young man was had some misogyny issues, was clearly a psychopath in some way or sociopath, that his first sexual crime resulted in murder. Usually there are behaviors and possibly past incidents that precede usually the horrific grand event as a murder or as a sexual assault. Miles Bryant didn't have any previous convictions, but he had gotten a couple of talking tos. And one of his childhood friends who reconnected with him, post high school, I think, but very quickly decided that this motherfucker was too goddamn creepy to be kicking it with, and decided very quickly that she was not going to be kicking it with my fucking Miles creepy ass no more. This young woman spoke to a local news station in Atlanta and actually has some compelling video to present of former Officer Bryant, Miles Bryant, harassing her, stalking her, showing what I would consider to be scary and aggressive behaviors, again leading up to the murder of Susana Morales. And that's my point. Like, the murderer or the rapist don't start off murdering and raping. There are behaviors that come before that that should serve as red flags to everybody, like the greater of society. And I wish we would make these kinds of behaviors more bigger deals, because they are leading indicators to violence and great harm, usually towards women. But yeah, so Will, let's watch this clip from a former platonic friend of this now convicted murderer who said that, yeah, he was creeping her the fuck out. Well, let's make sure we start that from the very beginning, please and thank you. Let's go.
I get a phone call. He's asking me, was I home? I said I was at work. What do you want? He said nothing. I just was checking on you.
In March, Alicia Bates claims shortly after she hung out with her old friend and former Doraville police officer, Miles Bryant, he showed up to her Snellville apartment unannounced and uninvited.
I come home at like 12 because I was a manager at Taco Bell, and my door's kicked in.
Bates said she thought it was someone else who previously was stalking her until she says her neighbor witnessed Bryant trying to break in.
I never put two and two together until my neighbor ended up telling me that it was like a black guy coming and putting his ear to my door, listening to see if I was home and stuff like that. And then she was alarmed when she heard the knocking and she saw him trying to break in.
Bates said Bryant showed up to her door again in October and 2 more times in December. Also saying this ring video shows Bryant stopping by in December while she was hiding inside with her boyfriend.
I was home.
Okay.
I was at the door with my gun. My boyfriend had his gun, and we were waiting for him to come through the door because I knew he was a police officer.
Bates said she reported it to Gwinnett Police and Doraville Police in December. Doraville Police confirmed Bates reported it, saying an administrative investigation was conducted. They addressed it with Bryant, and the behavior stopped. Doraville Police.
Oh, so I think the way that concluded, basically nothing happened to him as a result of that behavior. As a result of him obviously harassing and stalking his childhood friend or friend that he knew from when they were youths, nothing happened. He got a talking to, and then the behavior stopped, and he was allowed to remain on the force. He actually had one other, I believe, complaint, or not complaint per se, but he was disciplined by the Doraville Police Department because he was tasked with taking the report of a missing child. And according to, I believe, I'm not sure if this is Georgia state law or federal law, but the law says when dealing with a missing minor, police have to get these missing children's reports filed within 2 hours. Officer Bryant didn't file his report for 2 days, and he got a little ding on his record for that. I think they called it maladministration conduct or something. Again, a tap on the wrist And I just have to wonder, again, what's the entrance exam here for these cops? What's that psyche vow looking like? Like, who are they screening out, for fuck's sakes? Like who are they not letting be cops? Because clearly, like the not non-violent people, like you have to absolutely be willing to display a baseline of violence. I would even imagine if you have predilections towards violence against women, that's not a disqualifier from being a cop. What you mean? What you mean? Y'all, where to start? You guys know that ultimately my whole purpose for even talking about these types of issues, I ultimately, what is my ultimate goal? Kim, what is your, people have asked me that. What is your ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is to save lives. I do not want women and girls to continue to get murdered and harmed simply because they are female. And that's what happened to Susana Morales. Like, she didn't do anything to this motherfucker. She didn't break his heart. She didn't turn him down for a fucking day. Like, we don't know what happened, but we do know is that she didn't know him and he didn't know her. And that was not reason enough for him not to kill her, right? Like, a woman doesn't even have to do anything. And I know men can say the same thing about each other, right? Yes, lots of times men get murdered randomly by other men for no fucking reason, except, it was a man behind the trigger. So there we go. But the behavior of the stalking, of the harassment, of the attempting to kick in the door, like, that needs to be something that disqualifies people from jobs, okay? Especially if we're talking public safety, right? Okay, maybe that don't disqualify you from being an accountant, right? Maybe a little stalking may not disqualify you from, working in public relations, but it should absolutely disqualify. I'm joking, by the way. It should be disqualifying in a variety of things. And that's why I think we need to have a greater emphasis put on these kinds of behaviors, because these are the predetermining factors. This is what leads up to greater increased instances of violence. If you look at serial killers in particular who targeted women, as most of them do overwhelmingly, what were they doing before they started killing and SAing women? They were peeping toms, they were burglars, right? Like, they were doing these behaviors that gave them the confidence to accelerate their violence and to eventually be horrific and terrible people, right? Even more so. And we don't look at harassment and stalking in that way, right? I still think as a society, it's starting to turn, whereas it's not being viewed as cute anymore. Like, oh, girl, he called you 30 times. He must really love you. Like, I think we're changing. I think people are starting to realize that, that's problematic and very troublesome and potentially dangerous kind of behavior, that 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 could lead to something else. So, but I think we need to put more emphasis on it, right? Like, we need to raise our eyebrows way higher when a dude or a friend or even a woman, for all that, I don't give a fuck, but we know who is more likely to kill whom out here. So this is why I focus specifically on this male female dynamic, because of the propensity for women to be the victims of male violence, right? Especially when it comes to either intimate partner violence or gender-based violence, as is the case of what happened with Susana. But when harassment and stalking occur, that needs to be taken more seriously, as the potential for something worse could absolutely be coming after that. And it's not something that should be dismissed. It's also not something that should be swept under the rug because, oh, well, this young man, he just got a crush and, oh, he don't know what to do with himself. Oh, he just, in his feelings, don't hold it against him. Don't ruin his life. Don't Don't. That's what the victims get all the time. They get a bunch of fucking don'ts. So, don't take this further. Don't press charges. Don't call the police. Don't say nothing. And trust me, when it comes to calling the police, I don't think the police are very helpful, but for the fact they are the record keepers, right? So you don't call police to come keep you safe. Pff, you heard a girl in the clip. She said she had her pistol ready. Her boyfriend had his pistol ready. The fuck? You know what I'm saying? They knew what time it was. They called the police to make the fucking complaint. They didn't call the police to come save them, right? You don't call the cops to come save you. The police are the fucking stenographers, okay? They are the paperwork keepers. They are the pencil pushers. You go to the cops to get a record. You understand? That's what you go to the cops for, to get a fucking record. But my point is, that should need to be. We cannot continue to keep enabling shit that is known to lead up to potential violence. And while a boy or a young man or an old man who is harassing or stalking may not lead to violence, there's too many instances in which it has, that we cannot sit on our hands and hope for the best and hope that this latest example of stalking and harassment doesn't lead to a murder. Absolutely not. Now, it may not lead again to the murder of the person who is being stalked or harassed in that instance, but it gives all of us a very good indication about what this person is capable of and the entitlement that that person feels. And in this case, with Miles Bryant, the kind of power that he had simply being a police officer, right? Even though he had not been a police officer for very long, he knew that within that position, it afforded him some modicum of cover, in which for 6 months between July 2022 and February 2023, from when Susana went missing, from when her remains were discovered, he did live his life free as a fucking bird, working as a cop. Lord God help whoever else he may have encountered in those 6 months. I think Doraville and Gwinnett County needs to check for other young women who went missing during that time. Because when some folks commit these kind of crimes, they're usually not one-offs, especially stranger on stranger. It's likely to happen on more than once. And unfortunately, that this young man was stopped only after he took 16-year-old Susana Morales' life. And that's what I'm saying. Like I am galled at the acceleration that he went from harassing and stalking his childhood friend to, I'ma say, rape and murder. I know he wasn't convicted of rape, but that's why he even snatched that girl in the first place, was to have his way with her. And unfortunately, I have to assume that he did, because he killed her, right? So I want to send continued love and solidarity, and I hope some sort of closure to Susana's family. Her mother and her sister read victim impact statements at Miles Bryant's sentencing. He's already been sentenced. He's been sentenced to life without parole, plus another 12 months for the filing of a false criminal report. So he's never coming out. And if you know anybody locked up in Gwinnett County, make sure they treat him well. Or let me say this, make sure they treat him accordingly. Okay. He killed a teenage girl. Let's make sure he gets the accommodations that he is well earned and well deserved.